I remember the first day she arrived, her small suitcase in hand, her wide, innocent eyes sparkling as she looked around the apartment I had carefully prepared for her. Her name was supposed to be Lila, though I'd never met her before. She had been adopted by my aunt, and for reasons I didn't question at the time, she was now to live with me while the adoption papers were being finalized. I had always wanted a sister, someone to confide in, someone to share late-night secrets with, and I thought I had found that in her. I smiled, offered her a warm hug, and helped her unpack. She thanked me in a soft, melodic voice, and for a moment I felt a pang of joy. Maybe my family was finally giving me the sister I had always craved. The first few weeks were easy. Lila seemed shy, polite, and eager to fit in. She followed my routines, laughed at my jokes, and even complimented my small quirks in ways that made me feel appreciated. But slowly, little things began to slip through the cracks. My favorite necklace went missing one morning, replaced with a cheap imitation I didn't notice until weeks later. At first, I thought I had misplaced it. Then it was a pair of earrings, a scarf, and some clothes I was certain she had borrowed and never returned. I tried to be patient. I told myself she was just adjusting, just being a teenager in a new home. But a small voice in the back of my mind began to whisper doubts. The real betrayal came later, and it hit me harder than anything before. I had been dating someone for almost a year, a kind, thoughtful man named Julian. Our relationship had been steady, built on trust and understanding. But one evening, I noticed Lila lingering a little too close when he came over. At first, I dismissed it as coincidence, a younger girl being curious about my boyfriend. Then came the subtle signs. Messages left open on his phone when I was around, whispered conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room, and the occasional lingering glance that made my stomach twist. I started noticing her online behavior as well. Her social media was impeccable, curated to perfection, but something about it felt off. I decided to dig a little deeper, hoping to uncover a simple explanation. I discovered that she had been using a fake identity, a name that didn't exist in any official records, a persona she had created to manipulate and deceive. Her perfect life, the charm she wielded like a weapon, was a carefully constructed facade. And when I realized that she had been using this fake identity, not just to steal material things, but to lure Julian into believing she was someone trustworthy, my heart shattered in a way I hadn't anticipated. I didn't act impulsively. I watched, gathering evidence like a strategist preparing for a decisive battle. Screenshots of her messages, records of the stolen items, photographs of her sneaking around my apartment. Everything was meticulously documented. I wanted to be sure. I wanted her downfall to be undeniable, not just to me, but to everyone who had been deceived by her charm. The night I confronted her was quiet, almost eerily so. I called her into the living room under the guise of wanting to discuss something important. She walked in, her head held high, expecting perhaps a mild reprimand for minor infractions, completely unaware that I knew the full extent of her deception. I smiled, calm, collected, and placed a laptop on the coffee table. "Lila," I said softly, "I think it's time you saw the truth about yourself." I pressed play, and one by one, the evidence of her lies unfolded on the screen. Messages where she admitted to taking my things, conversations with Julian that revealed her intentions, and screenshots of her fake social media profile, each piece a nail in the coffin of the life she had so carefully constructed. I watched her face shift from confidence to confusion, then to terror as she realized the full scope of what I had discovered. But I didn't stop there. I knew that private confrontation would never be enough. She had thrived on the admiration of others, on the trust she manipulated, and I wanted the lesson to reach beyond just our small circle. I sent her online profile, along with the evidence of her deceit, to everyone she had interacted with under that fake name. Friends she had betrayed, colleagues she had manipulated, even online communities she had infiltrated. Within hours, her carefully curated world began to crumble. Messages poured in from people expressing disbelief, anger, and betrayal. Accounts that had once adored her turned against her. The perfect life she had built, the persona that had allowed her to charm, steal, and manipulate, evaporated in the span of a single night. I watched from a distance as the consequences unfolded, feeling a mixture of vindication and sorrow. It wasn't joy in the destruction of her life that motivated me, it was justice. I had been patient, strategic, and deliberate, and now the truth was undeniable. Lila's reaction was almost predictable: panic, attempts to deny, to explain, to shift blame, but the evidence was overwhelming. She had no path to redemption, no quick fix to mend the relationships she had shattered. In the aftermath, I began the slow process of rebuilding the trust that had been broken around her. Julian, heartbroken and embarrassed at having been deceived, eventually understood the extent of her manipulation. Our relationship, tested by betrayal, emerged stronger. He saw the meticulous care I had taken to uncover the truth, the patience and restraint I had shown, and the resolve with which I had ensured justice. It was a stark contrast to the chaos and deceit Lila had thrived on, and in that there was a quiet, unspoken restoration of balance. Lila eventually left town, her reputation preceding her in every place she attempted to settle. Jobs she applied for were denied when past acquaintances shared warnings. Friendships dissolved before they could form. Online profiles she created were quickly recognized and reported. Her world had shrunk to the size of the few people who remained unaware, and even they eventually learned, leaving her isolated and exposed. Through it all, I reflected on the lessons I had learned about trust, about vigilance, about the necessity of patience in seeking justice. I had wanted a sister, someone to share in my life and support me, and in a cruel twist, I had found deceit instead. But the experience had strengthened me, refined my instincts, and deepened my understanding of human nature. I had been tested, and I had not only survived, but had restored equilibrium in my own life while ensuring that deceit could not go unchallenged. By the time Lila's shadow had fully faded from my life, I had moved forward with clarity and confidence. I invested more in myself, cultivated relationships built on honesty and mutual respect, and never again allowed the allure of charm to cloud my judgment. And in that space of regained control, I realized that the most powerful form of revenge isn't in acting out of anger, but in quietly, meticulously, and decisively reclaiming what was rightfully yours while ensuring the consequences of deceit are undeniable. Lila's deception had been elaborate, her manipulations precise, but patience, strategy, and truth proved stronger. I had transformed a moment of betrayal into a testament of resilience, intelligence, and careful planning. And as I looked back, I understood that this was not just the end of a chapter, but the beginning of a life where my intuition, patience, and strength would always guide me, ensuring that no deceit could ever take root again. By the time the dust settled, I had regained everything: my belongings, my relationships, my peace of mind, and gained something even more valuable: the unwavering confidence that I could face betrayal head-on, dismantle it, and emerge not only unbroken, but stronger than ever before. I had turned a sister's deception into a story of empowerment, strategy, and ultimate vindication, and it was a lesson that would stay with me forever, shaping the way I navigated the world one careful, deliberate step at a time. The final act, the climax of my patience and planning, came quietly. Lila, realizing the world she had constructed had vanished, tried one last desperate move: an apology, sent simultaneously to everyone she had deceived. It was met with silence, indifference, and in many cases, outright ridicule. Her plea for sympathy fell flat. The empire of lies she had built crumbled before her eyes, and I watched, not with glee, but with solemn satisfaction, knowing that truth had prevailed. Through it all, I emerged unscathed, stronger, and wiser, with a deep understanding that the most potent power is the one wielded with restraint, intelligence, and unyielding resolve. Lila's deception had been a test of my patience, my judgment, and my strategic thinking, and I had passed with flying colors. In the quiet aftermath, I finally allowed myself to breathe, to embrace the freedom of knowing that the past could not harm me, and that I had mastered the art of reclaiming control over my life, my possessions, and my peace. Every stolen piece of jewelry, every lie, every betrayal had led me here, to a place of quiet, undeniable triumphs. Lila had created chaos in my life, but I had transformed it into a masterclass in patience, strategy, and ultimate justice, proving that even the most calculated deception could not outmatch careful planning, unwavering resolve, and the pursuit of truth. Through it all, I emerged unscathed, stronger and wiser, with a deep understanding that the most potent power is the one wielded with restraint, intelligence, and unyielding resolve. Lila's deception had been a test of my patience, my judgment, and my strategic thinking, and I had passed with flying colors. In the quiet aftermath, I finally allowed myself to breathe, to embrace the freedom of knowing that the past could not harm me, and that I had mastered the art of reclaiming control over my life, my possessions, and my peace. Every stolen piece of jewelry, every lie, every betrayal had led me here, to a place of quiet, undeniable triumph. Lila had created chaos in my life, but I had transformed it into a masterclass in patience, strategy, and ultimate justice, proving that even the most calculated deception could not outmatch careful planning, unwavering resolve, and the pursuit of truth.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.